Hello and welcome to another Warrior Creed live stream with me, the Radical Majid Nawaz. And today, as should be on your screens right about now, the topic for the stream today, the arrests have begun. There you see an image of a domino effect after the arrest of Prince Andrew, the domino hitting the face of Lord Mandelson. That is correct. Here in the United Kingdom, the advisor to three British prime ministers, Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, and now Prime Minister Keir Starmer. The advisor, Lord Mandelson, member of the House of Lords, has been arrested and released pending being charged for misconduct in public office. The same charge, the same basis for the arrest, should we say, for why the former Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was also arrested. The arrests have begun. This, coupled with news that the former Norwegian Prime Minister has also been arrested, and online chatter suggesting that he is now in hospital after having attempted to take his own life. The arrests have well and truly begun. The domino effect that you will see from the Epstein scandal, as evidence on your screens with this image right now, the domino effects have begun. And what you should expect is that after the arrest and investigation into the former Prince Andrew, Mountbatten Windsor, and Lord Mandelson is complete, the knock-on effects of these investigations are sure to impact Prime Minister Starmer. His position in office is not long until it is unsustainable, untenable, and the effect on Prime Minister Starmer will be significant. He remains Prime Minister. He is under no obligation to call an election anytime soon, but he is well and truly a sitting duck in number 10. This scandal threatens to engulf absolutely everything. It is perhaps not only the world's first truly global scandal involving multiple countries and multiple power players in those multiple countries, but it is also only just beginning. What we have witnessed so far is the tip of the iceberg. This scandal will continue to grow until it absolutely engulfs the premiership of Keir Starmer here in Britain. So that's all coming up for the Warrior Creed live stream just after we play you the introductory music. So don't go anywhere. Stay with us. The arrests have begun. That's the topic for today's Warrior Creed live stream.
You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge. Witness the strength. Street knowledge. Street knowledge.
Terrorize the jam like troops in Pakistan.
Street knowledge. Street knowledge. Quick service announcement brought to you in part by Warriors.
Damn, that shit was dope.
And welcome back to the Warrior Creed live stream. As we are saying, the topic for today, the arrests have begun. Lord Mandelson, member of the British House of Lords, also advisor to three British prime ministers in total, including this current one, Keir Starmer, our former ambassador to Washington, D.C., appointed earlier this year, and also having had resigned also this year. That Lord Mandelson, known by Epstein affectionately in his emails as perhaps P.T. Mandelson it has been arrested from his home in Camden. It is a major development in the Epstein scandal that continues to grow and continues to engulf this government and many others across the world in what is perhaps the world's first truly global scandal. Now, our regulars on the Warrior Creed live stream would have heard that all here first on the Warrior Creed as we were addressing this Epstein scandal for years, in fact. And we're going to bring you the shared screen so you can see the cartoon again for today's stream that is should be on your screens about now. And that cartoon by one Christian Adams, cartoonist, political satirist, depicts dominoes. As you can see, the domino effect depicted in the form of a political cartoon. The first domino there with the image of Prince Andrew, and the second with the image of Lord Mandelson. It is well and truly a domino effect that is going to affect many others. The Prince and the Dark Prince have been arrested. Let's start with the Times headline, and that should be on your screens now. And the Times reports today, Peter Mandelson released after arrest on suspicion of misconduct. So he has been interrogated, no doubt. The purpose of the arrest is so that he can be interrogated under caution and detained at His Majesty's pleasure. Of course, he's been released pending the decision or any decision by the Crown Prosecution Service to charge both Prince Andrew and the Dark Prince, Lord Mandelson, have not yet been charged. They have both been arrested, and the charges, if they are to face them, will be a decision made by the Crown Prosecution Service. The Crown Prosecution Service that Keir Starmer, the current Prime Minister, used to be the head of when he decided as Director of Public Prosecutions not to pursue charges against Britain's most notorious and now deceased paedophile, Sir Jimmy Savile, one of the closest friends to our current king. It is truly a scandal that, as we say here in Warrior Creed, we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. We're going to read a segment from the Times for you, that segment that's on your screens. The Times today report Keir Starmer faces questions about his political judgment in appointing Mandelson as ambassador, despite knowing about Mandelson's links to Epstein. The Prime Minister said that Mandelson misled him about the extent of their friendship. Mandelson was arrested only days before a by-election in Gorton and Denton in Manchester that is considered crucial for Labour. So immediately off the bat, one of the first things to keep in mind here with the arrest of Mandelson is that his arrest comes only a few days before the by-election. In other words, there is an election to be held in a specific constituency of the UK that will return a member of Parliament to Parliament, and that is the by-election in Gorton and Denton constituency. It was by tens of thousands a Labour stronghold. Whether or not this scandal and other scandals have significantly reduced the Labour vote in that constituency remains to be seen in a couple of days. What we do know is what with the surge of the Green Party, Labour's vote will indeed be split in that constituency, and current polling indicates that it's a three-way constituency that could go, of course, could be held by Labour, but it could also go to the Reform Party, especially if the Greens take enough votes from the Labour Party. So depending on what happens in this constituency, the future of Keir Starmer may well and truly be at stake. But as of yet, before any of our American colleagues get too excited, as of yet, Keir Starmer, despite the arrest of the man that he personally appointed as ambassador to Washington, D.C., as of yet, Keir Starmer, despite that arrest, remains Prime Minister. And of course, Keir Starmer's defense that he was deceived by Mandelson is similar to Les Wexner's defense that he was deceived by Epstein. But nobody is buying that bullshit anymore. No one here in the United Kingdom buys the crap that Keir Starmer claims that he was somehow deceived by Mandelson, because it was by the time Mandelson was appointed as our ambassador to Washington, D.C., it was an open secret that he had been best buddies with Epstein, and only, it seems, everybody other than Keir Starmer knew about it. Now, Sky News reports this is a seismic moment. It well and truly is. Deputy political editor Sam Coates for Sky News says that the political ramifications of Peter Mandelson's arrest will go to the very heart of Downing Street. That is correct. We're going to just play this video for you so you can hear the Sky News reaction for yourselves.
About it, Mark. This is a seismic moment, not only for Peter Mandelson, but for British politics as a whole. 6 months ago, the man that you can see in the pictures was the British ambassador to Washington, one of the maybe half dozen most powerful figures in this country, personally appointed by Keir Starmer against elements even of his own better judgment, persuaded of it, we believe, by his then Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, because he was thought to be the only man who could bridge the divide with Donald Trump's White House after the US president returned to the White House for the second time. Peter Mandelson believed to be the only person who could help Britain and sort out its trading and relationship with the US at this tricky time. Today, being taken away, as you can see, by police. Peter Mandelson has denied any wrongdoing, but I suspect there will be a lot of focus on those emails that we heard so much about, emails from the last time Gordon Brown was in the British government, when Peter Mandelson was in the British government. When Gordon Brown was Prime Minister, Peter Mandelson, then Business Secretary, alleged to have forwarded emails, that's what the Epstein emails suggested, forwarded emails to Jeffrey Epstein, potentially containing confidential government material. The allegation that he tipped off Jeffrey Epstein about an impending EU bailout and that he notified the financier about the activities of the British government and gave advice to big US bankers to mildly threaten the then UK Chancellor, the late Alistair Darling. All of those things likely to come under scrutiny. Peter Mandelson, not a figure shy of controversy, forced to resign from the British government twice when Tony Blair was Prime Minister, once over a home loan scandal, once over his relationship with the Hinduja brothers. But this challenge facing Lord Mandelson is now of a different order, with the police now, Metropolitan Police now arresting him. It will go, I think the political ramifications of this will go to the very heart of Downing Street, because once again, the focus will be on Keir Starmer's decision to appoint somebody with a track record as checkered as Peter Mandelson politically, with those two resignations, in knowledge that there was a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein that went after his conviction for relations with minors back in 2009, a relationship that possibly involved taking hospitality from Jeffrey Epstein in the early 2010s. All of that was known to Keir Starmer at the moment that he appointed him the British ambassador to Washington. The question that Labour MPs will and are asking is why take such a risk? Is it really the case that Peter Mandelson was the only person who could solve the conundrum of the UK relationship with Washington, particularly given that there was a talented incumbent in Karen Pierce already occupying that office, but she ended up being hurried out of the British residency in Washington to make way for Peter Mandelson, because he was seen by Keir Starmer and his then Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, as the only answer to the political question that Donald Trump's second presidency posed. And yet that has turned out to look like a political misjudgment by the Prime Minister, who will now, like the rest of us, be watching these pictures.
A political misjudgment by the Prime Minister is perhaps an understatement. This is the biggest scandal that this Prime Minister's ever faced. He's holding on for the meanwhile, but it's also perhaps the biggest scandal that the world has ever faced. Now, we're living through it, so perhaps it doesn't feel like that. Maybe it does. But often is the case that when you're living through something, you don't really truly appreciate the enormity of it until hindsight. And often we take for granted moments we're living through, but really, truly, a bit of perspective on this. This is perhaps one of the biggest scandals in political history. Not only biggest in terms of sheer size, it is actually global. And so its sheer size, being global as it is, makes it a huge scandal, perhaps the biggest in history, but also just in terms of its import and its impact and its consequence. We're talking, after all, as you heard there in the Sky News broadcast, we're talking, after all, of the kind of political scandal that involves underage child trafficking and rape and torture, according to the emails. All of these things are available to publicly search. And in addition, using evidence of said abuses to as leverage over politicians in multiple governments to force them to do the bidding of the power that controlled that leverage or that compromat material, the videos of the abuse of underage children. And so in terms of consequence, it is truly one of the worst scandals to hit the world in the living memory, at least our living memory. And it's not just in size, but in terms of consequence as well. It is truly a moment that shifts our timeline. It shifts the way we understand the world, the way that we understand politics has been conducted, and sheds some light on what many, not just we here at Radical Media, many others as well, have been saying for a long time about the fact that we were living in some form of Truman Show or illusion. Finally, the curtain has been lifted, and we are now able to understand why, for so many years, it feels like our politicians have been governing our country not in our interests, but rather governing our country in the interests of others. And many were perplexed as to how that was possibly allowed to happen. Now we have the answer, because the people in charge were compromised and were being blackmailed to make decisions that were not in our interests. And that is probably one of the best explanations that will be available for why it felt for so long that our countries were being destroyed from within at the hands of those in charge over us, whose job it was, in effect, to not govern our countries in our interests, but to ruin them on behalf of some other interests. Now, we discussed both in the Warrior Creed live stream last week and in the Radical Dispatch, the written version of the stream, exactly who had been behind this, and the fact that this was clearly, the Epstein operation was a Mossad Israeli operation, is now incredibly difficult to deny, not least because Les Wexner, the man responsible for effectively giving Epstein his mansion in Manhattan, where most of the abuse took place in New York, he testified in Congress and effectively stated very clearly that Epstein worked for the Rothschild banking family. Now, in addition to that, we have the emails that the Department of Justice released. In those emails are recorded conversations with former Israeli Prime Minister, who we know visited Epstein no less than 36 times. Imagine the security clearances needed for that. So it is not really, no serious person disputes that this was clearly a Mossad operation. That's what the preponderant working hypothesis needs to be. All the distraction labeling this somehow as a Russian operation is more of the same. It's the more Russiagate attempts to distract that we have become accustomed to. Nevertheless, because of all of those reasons, it really is perhaps one of the biggest scandals to have rocked history, in not only living memory, but in recorded memory as well. Now, going back to the news of Mandelson's arrest, we're going to break down for you exactly what he could potentially be accused of. Here, the Times reports on the 23rd of February. That's on your screens now. By the way, if I'm sounding a bit out of sorts and my eyes are squinting and you hear me sniffing, it's because it's springtime now. Congratulations, everybody. The weather's improved, but hay fever kicks in. And imagine trying to fast in Ramadan with hay fever. It is incredibly difficult, but we're going to push through this nevertheless. So on your screens now, you should be able to see the headline from the Times: Why was Peter Mandelson arrested? And the Epstein file reveal key theories. Now, the key thing to keep in mind at this stage, before we go through all of that, is the charge was misconduct in public office. That's a common law charge here in the UK. In other words, it's from effectively years and years of precedents through our common law courts, case law. It is not a legislation. It's not a statutory charge, but that doesn't really affect matters. Common law is law in the UK as well. And its maximum punishment could be life in prison. So it is a serious charge, even though it's a common law charge. It's a very serious charge. And we have hints from the actual emails themselves as to what the misconduct in public office, as the charge states, could potentially be. So we'll go through 4 options for you here. And one of them, as you can see now, should be able to see on your screens. That's from today's Times: selling UK assets. Now, keep in mind, if the allegation holds that Lord Mandelson was placed in position in order to provide Epstein with uh, information on the inner machinations of the British government to the benefit of Epstein, then this makes sense. So take a look at what's been stated here in the Times. We'll read it for you. Selling UK assets. One of the exchanges appears to show that Mandelson forwarded a memo to Epstein during the financial crisis in 2009. The memo was written by Nick Butler, a special advisor to Gordon Brown, then Prime Minister, and was sent to Brown and copied to Mandelson. The note, which began, "Dear Gordon," suggested that the government had saleable assets that could be offloaded to the private sector to reduce the huge debt that had been built up from bailing out banks during the financial crisis. Emails released by the US Department of Justice last month showed that Epstein responded to the document, saying, "What saleable assets?" Mandelson allegedly suggested land and property. In December that year, Brown, then Prime Minister, formally announced plans to reduce the government debt by selling £16 billion worth of assets, including the Dartford Crossing Bridge and Channel Rail Link. Mandelson did not respond on Monday to questions about the message. So that's one of the potential breaches that Mandelson could be charged with in terms of misconduct in public office, leaking information in advance, which was confidential information about what the UK government plan to do in terms of selling assets. Leaking that information to Epstein in advance would pretty much meet the criteria of misconduct in public office, of course, subject to many legal caveats, which are yet to be determined if Mandelson is indeed charged. The next one here by the Times, as you can see on your screens now, EU bank bailout. And we'll read it for you again. On the 9th of May, 2010, days before Labour was forced from office, Mandelson allegedly passed Epstein details of a planned Eurozone bailout by the European Union. Epstein wrote to Mandelson, "Sources tell me 500 billion euro bailout almost complete." The reply from Mandelson appeared to confirm the move. Should be announced tonight, he said. A later message said he was leaving Number 10 and would call. The next morning, EU ministers agreed a 500 billion euro deal to lend to the Eurozone states. So again, private information being leaked in advance to Mandelson, who clearly, as is in the previous case, would have been able to use that information to his financial advantage, especially if he was a trader. All of this is something that could be trouble for Lord Mandelson when considering the charge of misconduct in public office. The next one, bankers' bonuses. The emails appear to show that as calls grew for the government to crack down on the bonuses paid to bankers after the financial crisis, Mandelson discussed the issue with Epstein. In December 2009, an email from Mandelson told Epstein that Jamie Dimon, the boss of JP Morgan, which remember was Epstein's bank, right, should mildly threaten Alistair Darling, who was then the Chancellor of the Exchequer in the UK, the man that ran our economy. All right. So here it is, Mandelson telling Epstein to tell the boss of JP Morgan to threaten the Chancellor of the Exchequer of the United Kingdom over a planned tax on bonuses. Now, what happened next was revealed by the Chancellor of the Exchequer himself, Alistair Darling, who died in 2023. To continue reading from the Times, Darling, who died in 2023, wrote in his autobiography that Dimon, boss of JP Morgan, called him a few days later. And now this is a quote. Mr. Dimon was angry, very angry. He said that his bank bought a lot of UK debt and he wondered if that was now such a good idea. He went on to say that they were thinking of building a new office in London, but they had to reconsider that now. There's your mild threat. So the mild threat was delivered by the JP Morgan boss, Jamie Dimon, to Alistair Darling, who recalled it in his biography. Darling's now since passed away. So the threat was delivered, and we know from these emails that Epstein told Mandelson, so Mandelson told Epstein to make sure that threat was delivered. So again, very clear evidence of misconduct in public office, subject to the legal, of course, procedure playing itself out. And the fourth one, that the Times reveals is leaking private emails. In another exchange, Mandelson is alleged to have forwarded an email sent to Brown's secret Downing Street email address by Baroness Vadera, a minister and one of Brown's closest economic advisors. The Times then goes into a lot of detail about what that email stated. Now, the key thing is this, that all of that information appears to be being exchanged for money. And here is the money, again, from the Times reading. The files appear to show that in 2003 and 2004, Mandelson was sent $75,000 directly by Epstein. Mandelson has said he has no recollection of receiving the money. Epstein also sent $10,000 to Mandelson's partner, Ronaldo Avila da Silva, for an osteopathy course in 2009 and 2010. By this time, Mandelson was business secretary, but he has denied that this was a conflict of interest, saying the idea that giving Ronaldo an osteopath bursary is going to sway mine or anyone else's views about banking policy is risible. Keep in mind, Mandelson denied everything up until these emails were released and insisted that he was suitable for the role in Washington, D.C. Our regulars will remember it. We covered it at the time. So Mandelson's denials don't really amount to much. Now, it isn't just Mandelson that was arrested. As we said, there were two princes in the UK. It was Prince Andrew and the Dark Prince, Lord Mandelson, known as the Prince of Darkness because of his dark ways in controlling politicians. Why in the 90s was he known as that? Well, now we understand. But the other prince, former prince now, Prince Andrew, was also arrested. Here you see on the 19th of February on your screens, The Guardian reports the news. And it states in the headline, why was former Prince Andrew arrested and what happens now? To read from the article for you, Andrew served as UK trade envoy between 2001 and 2011. In this role, he traveled globally and was given privileged access to senior government and business contacts around the world. In 2010, he appears to have forwarded government reports from visits to Vietnam, Singapore, and China to Epstein, according to recently published files. To continue reading, the emails indicate that on the 7th of October 2010, Andrew appeared to send Epstein details of his official forthcoming trips as trade envoy to Singapore, Vietnam, and Shenzhen in China and Hong Kong, where he was accompanied by business associates of Epstein. After the trip on the 30th of November, he appeared to have forwarded official reports of those visits sent by his then special assistant, Amit Patel, to Epstein 5 minutes after receiving them. The documents also appear to show that Andrew forwarded Epstein information on investment opportunities in gold and uranium in Afghanistan. A briefing prepared for Andrew by UK officials when he was trade envoy and reported by the BBC was said to have been forwarded to Epstein in December 2020 and includes a list of high-value commercial opportunities in Helmand Province. Under official guidance, trade envoys have a duty of confidentiality over sensitive commercial and political information about their official visits. Being named in the Epstein files is not an indication of misconduct. Andrew has previously denied any wrongdoing, blah, 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 usual caveats. So there we have it, folks. The two princes, Prince Andrew, former Prince Andrew, that is. But nevertheless, the two princes, former Prince Andrew and the Prince of Darkness, Lord Mandelson, have both been arrested, for misconduct in public office. Remains to be seen what the next steps are and how they will be charged. But what is the maximum sentence under law for the charge that they were arrested for? Well, as we stated earlier, that is a common law charge, and the maximum sentence is life. You can see it on your screens now, as reported by that same Guardian article we just read from, which we'll just read for you. You should be able to see it there. If we expand that. What is the maximum sentence under the law? Misconduct in public office carries a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. The offence of misconduct in public office is committed if a public officer willfully neglects to perform his or her duty or willfully misconducts to such a degree as to amount to an abuse of public trust in the office holder without reasonable excuse or justification. Well, it kind of does fit, doesn't it? Which is why this next image is rather fitting as well. And that is the inmate. There you can see it. a great classic British pub sign, one of those signs that dangle outside the pubs. The sign, or the inn, if you like, is called the Inmate, and that is an image of the former Prince Andrew, by now a globally recognizable image taken as he was being returned home after his arrest. And the image shows Andrew looking incredibly shocked at this turn of events. The Inmate is, again, rather appropriate. So the two princes have been arrested. Back to the actual substance of the law itself, and just to read for you again from The Guardian, can there be difficulties in prosecuting under this law? Well, the law is a bit antiquated. So we'll just read from here. It says the offence is widely considered to be ill-defined and is due to be replaced after criticisms from ministers, the Courts of Appeal, and legal academics. 6 years ago, a report from the Law Commission, which advises ministers, said that the offence was one of the most notoriously difficult to define in England and Wales. While almost 200 people were prosecuted under the offence between 2014 and 2024, nearly all were police or prison officers, and only 4 convictions were secured of people in senior positions, according to Dr. Tom Frost, a senior law lecturer at Loughborough University. Under the Public Office Accountability Bill, which is now before the House of Commons, the offence will be replaced with 2 new offences. So the law that they've been arrested under is on its way out, but that shouldn't affect too much due process in this case, because, of course, when the law changes, the original law that they were arrested under and the original offence, the offence itself will be maintained. There will remain an offence of misconduct in public office. Now, they won't be arrested retrospectively under any subsequent statutory law that is introduced, but if they are not yet charged, then, of course, all is up for play under that new statutory law. If they have been charged by then, it's easy enough for Parliament to continue the application of the old law for those who have been charged under it. Parliament is sovereign. It can do pretty much what it wants in the UK. And so it isn't really, that doesn't cause too much of an obstacle in seeing justice be delivered. What remains to be seen is whether the Crown Prosecution Service actually do decide to press charges. But so far, Virginia Giuffre's family have welcomed the news. They have said that they praise the UK authorities for treating the Epstein files with the urgency that they deserve after Lord Mandelson's arrest. We'll read a segment of that article there for you. The family of Virginia Giuffre has praised British authorities for treating the Epstein files with the urgency they demand following the arrest of Lord Peter Mandelson on suspicion of misconduct in public office. In a statement reported by the BBC and other outlets, Giuffre's brother, Sky Roberts, and his wife, Amanda Roberts, said, as Virginia Roberts Giuffre's family, we commend the British authorities for taking meaningful action and treating the Epstein files with the urgency they demand. While these arrests aren't for the underlying exploitation, they are a crucial step toward truth and accountability. And this is the key part here. The contrast with the continued inaction in the United States is undeniable. Survivors deserve transparency, swift investigation, and real justice, no matter who is implicated. So the family of Virginia Giuffre welcoming the arrests in the UK, although they stated that the arrests themselves are not for the underlying abuse that occurred to people like Virginia Giuffre and others. They are a step in the right direction, and they are lamenting the absence of any such action in the United States of America. Now, again, this was all a long time coming. For regulars at Radical Media and the Warrior Creed livestream, you will remember that we have been on this topic for a few years. You should be able to see on your screens now the Radical Dispatch from the 11th of January 2024, headlined Breaking, Epstein Judge Unseals Richard Branson and Photo of Lord Peter Mandelson. That's from 2024, folks. 11th of January 2024. That's how long it's taken for us to get to this point. But also keep in mind, that's why Keir Starmer's excuse, like Les Wexner's, that, oh, I was deceived by this smooth talking criminal and I didn't know, doesn't really cut it. Because here we have, as reported in the Radical Dispatch, 11th of January 2024, there were unsealed documents from a judge that made it absolutely clear what the nature of Mandelson's relationship with Epstein was like. And also, as you can see now, on the 12th of February 2025, that's now last year, not just 2 years ago, but also last year, we reported Epstein's suspect, Lord Mandelson, confirmed as UK ambassador to the US. And the reason we wrote that, some of you will remember that article, is because he was a suspect by then who deserved every suspicion and yet was instead rewarded by Keir Starmer as our ambassador to Washington, D.C. The entire thing is very strange, which is why we've said here in the next section that there only remains one option for Keir Starmer, and that is he is next. Keir Starmer is next. That's our view. Why? As we said here, on the 5th of February in the Radical Dispatch, Epstein files, The Prince and the Prince of Darkness fall. Prime Minister Starmer is next. And we'll read a segment for you from that. What did Mandelson have on PM Starmer such that Starmer remained loyal to him over the advice provided by his own security services? In fact, Starmer continued to back Mandelson right up until the day before his departure from post in Washington, D.C., even as Mandelson had admitted his Epstein friendship in his vetting interview, believe it or not. In failing to take action against those accused of sexual crimes, Starmer has form. What do we mean by that? Well, this relates to why we're saying Keir Starmer is next. Because look at this. Oh dear. As The Sun reported on the 16th of June, 2020, headlined, Sir Keir Starmer and the Jimmy Savile scandal. What was Labour leaders' involvement as head of public prosecutions? Now, our American viewers, readers, and listeners may not know the name Sir Jimmy Savile, but Sir Jimmy Savile he's now dead, was effectively the Epstein of the United Kingdom. He was very close to the now King Charles, and he was Britain's most notorious paedophile. Some estimates state that he was suspected of raping and abusing around 500 children. What we do know is that he was interrogated after being arrested by the British police, who recommended to the CPS that he be charged for the rape of underaged, below the age of 16, disabled girls. And yet, the Crown Prosecution Service chose not to prosecute. And who was the head of the Crown Prosecution Service at the time? Well, it was none other than our now Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who seems to have been rewarded by being promoted from head of the Crown Prosecution Service to Prime Minister, just as Mandelson was rewarded by being promoted as ambassador to Washington, D.C. Do you see how this works? These people fail upwards. They are not demoted for their failure. They're not cancelled for telling the truth from your airwaves. They fail upwards. They're promoted. Meanwhile, those who speak the truth are silenced, cancelled, have their only source of income taken from them. These criminals are promoted upwards. And that is the state of Britain and much of the world today. Criminality, misconduct, abuse, all of it rewards and pays those who are members of this cabal. Meanwhile, they punish those others who speak the truth. And since then, details have emerged as to exactly how Starmer was light on paedophiles when he was head of the Crown Prosecution Service. And this is new information released by the Daily Express in the UK. And you can see the date there, 22nd of February 2026. This is literally a couple of days ago, last Sunday. The Express reports, headline, Keir Starmer rocked as scandal exposed pedos let off with warning letters. Exclusive. An Express investigation has uncovered shocking revelations about the Prime Minister's past actions at the Crown Prosecution Service. It appears that he was letting them off merely with warning letters and not much else. So when we say Keir Starmer is next, it is his conduct at the Crown Prosecution Service in covering all of this up. That is what needs to be investigated. We here at Radical Media and the Warrior Creed livestream have said to you on multiple occasions, and you will all remember it, the regulars. We also went on other people's podcasts, on the Winston Marshall show, on forget his name now, Peter McCormack. That's it. Sorry, Peter. On Peter McCormack's show. And we stated this very clearly, that the grooming gang scandal, when Elon Musk revived the grooming gang scandal in the UK, the grooming gang scandal wasn't news in the UK. We had already covered it, addressed it. Arrests, prosecutions, and convictions had started to roll in. Unlike the Epstein scandal, by the way, as of yet, Ghislaine Maxwell remains the only woman convicted for trafficking underage victims to absolutely nobody. Yet in the underage rape grooming gang scandal in the UK, involving predominantly British Pakistani men, Muslim men, like me, British Pakistani Muslim, the convictions in those cases had at least begun. So that wasn't news when Musk raised that case. What was news, if you remember at the time, we said it very clearly on the Winston Marshall podcast, on the Peter McCormack's podcast, and on our own stream. The news is the cover-up. It was Keir Starmer who covered it up. As Director of Crown Prosecutions, he covered up the underage rape grooming gang scandal, and he covered up the Jimmy Savile paedophile scandal, and it now appears that he's complicit in the Epstein scandal as well. And we know now how he covered it up, because the Express has revealed this today. He was letting paedophiles off with mere warning letters. And this article has a lot of detail in it. We will also provide all of that detail for you in the written version of the Radical Dispatch released tomorrow, and you can see for yourselves. So Keir Starmer, as we've said, is next. How and what could potentially impact his premiership? Well, the Telegraph reports, in fact, we'll blow this up so you can see it too on your screens. The Telegraph reports that emails, this is today, the Telegraph reports emails between Number 10 and Lord Mandelson discussing the peers, that's Lord Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, will be released in March. That's this coming March. Yeah, next month. Those emails between Number 10 and Lord Mandelson discussing his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein in part of that process of appointing him as ambassador to Washington, D.C., they will be released in March. Well, we don't know what happened there. Our stream was cut. Very interesting, folks. The stream, we are not on Wi-Fi. We are on Ethernet connection. And so the stream should not have just cut like that. But for some reason, the stream appears to have cut. But we're back now. And so we thank you all for your patience. Hope that didn't disrupt too much. We're going to have to check on the back end once we're done with this stream to see exactly what happened. But the stream, we were reliably informed by our software, was terminated. But we see from the screen now that we are back. We are live. We hope you can all see us. And we're going to continue because though it does appear as if there was some interference, our signal will always remain stronger than their noise. Back to the topic and the topic of Keir Starmer being next. There will be, as we were saying, the Telegraph reports today that those emails will be released in March. That is in time at least for the local elections here in the UK, which means there is going to be a considerable hurdle for the Labour Party to overcome when it comes to those elections, as more and more comes out on Keir Starmer. Now, whether he resigns now or he resigns after the abysmal failure in those local elections, it does appear as if his time in government is incredibly limited. He is in a lot of trouble. This is not to be underestimated, what's going on here now in the UK. Now, the political editor for the Times newspaper reports this on the topic of those further emails being released. We'll just read this for you. He says, exclusive, 2 of the key documents held by the government on Lord Mandelson's appointment as US ambassador will not be made public until after the police investigation and any criminal trial has concluded. It means that it will be months or even possibly years before they see the light of day. That includes the Cabinet Office due diligence report given to Keir Starmer prior to Mandelson's appointment as US ambassador. It details public evidence about their friendship, the fact Mandelson stayed at Epstein's New York apartment while he was in jail for sex offenses, the JP Morgan report saying the two men had a particularly close relationship. It will raise significant questions about Starmer's judgment. The three questions Starmer put to Mandelson and his responses will also be withheld. Starmer told the Commons that these provided evidence that Mandelson misled him. Both documents are being withheld because of concerns that they could prejudice a potential criminal trial. The government says it believes it will be able to publish the Cabinet Office due diligence report in the first tranche of documents next month, but it can't guarantee that given that we may be in the midst of a criminal trial by then. I'm told that this is a significant issue. It sounds like the question and answer is emails with Mandelson won't be published until everything is wrapped up. So again, that's clear from the Times political editor that a lot of documents will be released and some will not be released until later on because there may well be a trial. But a lot of the emails between Mandelson and Number 10 prior to his appointment as ambassador to Washington will be released in March. That's going to cause Keir Starmer a huge problem. Now, today in the House of Parliament, the Liberal Democrats raised a motion and they were asking for all of this information to be released. Here is the Liberal Democrat leader, Ed Davey, making a statement in Parliament today. And Sky News reports Lib Dems leader Sir Ed Davey remarks on the impact of the Epstein files as the House of Commons debates releasing files on Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. The former prince has denied any wrongdoing. We're going to play it for you, the leader of the Liberal Democrats demanding more information be released by the government, in particular those files we've just referenced, which probably will be released. There's a lot more coming out on this. Take a listen to Ed Davey.
In many ways, this is the first truly global scandal, from the White House in Silicon Valley to Oslo and Paris. But it's also a deeply British scandal, reaching right to the top of the British establishment. Because can there be many people more symbolic of the rot that eats away at the British establishment than the former Duke of York and Special Trade Envoy, and the former Business Secretary, First Secretary of State, and Ambassador to the United States? Their association with Epstein and their actions on his behalf, while trusted with the privilege of public office, are a stain on our country. Today, we must begin to clean away that stain with the disinfectant of transparency. Because whether it is the President of the United States and his Commerce Secretary, or Peter Mandelson and Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, or Epstein himself, their victims and survivors have seen those responsible evade accountability and escape justice for far too long. I desperately hope, that is ending now, and I hope the House will approve this motion.
So that is the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey, making it very clear that this is indeed one of the biggest scandals to face the world. As to whether Parliament releases these further documents, Sky News brings their deputy political editor Sam Coates to discuss it. That's on your screens now.
As if another mass disclosure of hundreds or thousands of papers is on its way. This is the Liberal Democrats using a bit of the time that they get to control Parliament, their opposition day motion today, and they will specifically ask for correspondence from Mandelson regarding the Andrew appointment. In an attempt, essentially what the Lib Dems want to do is work out ties between the two friends of Jeffrey Epstein, Mandelson and Andrew, because it is thought that Mandelson lobbied for Andrew's appointment as a trade envoy. So getting that into the open, I think, is Ed Davey's aim. So will it work? Well, I was messaging one pretty key member of the government last night about it all, about whether Labour could withstand such disclosure. And they just said, look, if I'm honest, I don't see how the hell anyone would vote against it. So it doesn't sound like the government are going to try and block it. It doesn't sound like they would have the numbers to stop it. So it sounds as if another mass disclosure of hundreds or thousands of papers is on its way.
And opening fires is kind of becoming the norm rather than the exception in these scandals, isn't it? And that's a big change to the system, given that we have a strong culture of confidentiality, if you want to be polite, or secrecy, if you think that government tends to try to hide away its business from the prying eyes of people like us. We're going to get such a lot of information dumped into the public domain. And yes, it may take longer if there is indeed a trial in the Peter Mandelson case. But usually we'd be waiting for 20-year rules for release of sensitive public records. I think there's still the question of what will be withheld on national security grounds. I was actually talking to people in some of the deeper parts of the deep state yesterday. And, the discussion was that the bar would be set pretty high on that. And it can't just be embarrassment caused. It would need to be something that very directly affects sources or raises a clear security question.
So there you have it, folks. It is not just a supposition that you're going to have hundreds of thousands of more files released, but in fact, after that speech by Ed Davey, we had a lot of confirmation that Parliament was indeed going to release them. Here is Sky News on that topic, that these files are indeed coming.
Haven't we, about the Lib Dems trying to get this humble address in Parliament, where they want the government to be forced to potentially release information around the vetting and the kind of thinking behind hiring Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew, as trade envoy. And now we've just found out in the past few moments that the government is not expected to oppose that Lib Dem-led attempt to compel ministers to release documents about the hiring of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor as a trade envoy at the time. Now, this is really significant because actually the last time we had this type of a fight with a humble address, it was a Conservative humble address, that was the debate around releasing the details of the hiring and the vetting and the due diligence when Peter Mandelson was hired as UK ambassador to the US. And now the Lib Dems have done something slightly similar, but very specifically around Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and his appointment as a trade envoy a long time ago, 2001 to 2011. This is a long time ago. But nonetheless, it is fascinating. Clearly, they have, first of all, decided actually they want to back this. They don't want to fight this, because actually there are questions around transparency, there are questions around accountability, and that's what the Lib Dems have been arguing this morning. And of course, it doesn't break with convention, although it normally would with a member of the royal family, because Andrew has been stripped of his titles. He's no longer a senior working royal, and therefore actually MPs are able to debate Andrew in the Commons in a way that they wouldn't be able to debate other members of the royal family. Now, Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House of Commons, has been very, very clear when it comes to this humble address that we now know the government is not going to oppose. MPs have to be incredibly careful about what they say to make sure they do not prejudice the police investigation that is potentially ongoing. We don't know how long it's going to last, into Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and of course now into Peter Mandelson, both arrested in the past few days. But nonetheless, the fact that the government is not opposing this, I think, is significant and shows that actually they understand the appetite, not only among the public, but also among MPs, to really scrutinise the hiring of these men.
So as you heard there, the government is not going to oppose the demand by the Liberal Democrats in the British Parliament today to release these extra files that are between number 10, Downing Street, that is, and Lord Mandelson, discussing his relationship with Epstein prior to appointing him as our ambassador to Washington, D.C. And the government's own trade minister, Chris Bryant, has confirmed this and says that he's delighted that a reckoning is coming for them. That's his own government he's talking about. See how serious this is? Take a listen to this. This is Chris Bryant. By the way, Chris Bryant MP, who viciously came for me prior to my cancellation from LBC for opposing every single COVID mandate, and then posted publicly how happy he was that I was cancelled. That's the same guy now who in Parliament has no choice but to say that he's happy that this is coming for his own party. Have a listen to this.
Let me be clear from the outset, we support this motion today.
Frankly, it is the least we owe the victims of the horrific abuse that was perpetrated by Jeffrey Epstein and others. The abuse that was enabled, aided, and abetted by a very extensive group of arrogant, entitled, and often very wealthy individuals in this country and elsewhere. It's not just the people who participated in the abuse, it's the many, many more who turned a blind eye out of greed, familiarity, or deference. To my mind, they too were complicit, just as complicit, and I welcome the reckoning that is coming to them now. I doubt there is anyone in this House who is not shocked and appalled by the recent allegations. Colleagues and many civil servants have told me their own stories of their interactions with Mr. Mountbatten Windsor, and they all betray the same pattern. A man on a constant self-aggrandizing and self-enriching hustle. A rude, arrogant, and entitled man who could not distinguish between the public interest, which he said he served, and his own private interest.
So, as you heard there from Chris, from the government's own trade minister, Chris Bryant, that he welcomes the reckoning that is coming to them all now, and there is a reckoning coming to them all, and it may well come for his own government. Chris Bryant there being a turkey welcoming Christmas. But, you know, what have we come to expect from governments anyway? But this is truly an issue for Keir Starmer, and it's why we've said Keir Starmer is next. He is in a lot of trouble that he's unlikely to get out of. And it isn't just here in the UK that these major arrests have happened. Of course, the arrests of the two princes, Prince Andrew and the Prince of Darkness, Lord Manderson, are what we've been addressing. But actually, to take you to Norway, it appears that there's another arrest in Norway, which is also rocking that country there. The BBC reports on the 12th of February, last week, that the former Prime Minister of Norway has been charged with gross corruption over Epstein links. There's the headline on your screens now. So the arrests have well and truly begun. This is the former Norwegian Prime Minister charged with gross corruption over Epstein links, reported by the BBC there. And we're going to read the article for you now. And you can see that. Former Norwegian Prime Minister Thorbjørn Jagland has been charged with gross corruption over his ties with the US sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Apologies if we butchered the name there, Norwegians. I think it's Thorbjørn Jagland. The charge was brought after the Council of Europe lifted Jagland's immunity, which he enjoyed because of his past diplomatic role. Emails released by the US government are thought to show that Jagland planned solo and family visits to Epstein's home in Paris, New York, and Palm Beach after the billionaire was convicted of a child sex offense. As well as serving as prime minister from 1996 to 1997, Jagland is also former head of the Norwegian Nobel Committee. Now, that is an important piece of information, considering what President Trump subsequently revealed about the way that the Nobel Prize was awarded. So we're just going to show you that one more time and read it again. As you can see there, the bold line near the bottom of the paragraph. Jagland is also a former head of the Norwegian Nobel Committee and spent a decade as Secretary General of the Council of Europe. The Nordic country has seen several public figures drawn into the widening scandal, including Crown Princess Mette-Marit, diplomats Mona Juul and Terje Rod Larsen, and Chief Executive of the World Economic Forum, Børge Brende. Now, this is all significant because they are all Norwegians who have been embroiled in the Epstein scandal. Last week's Warrior Creed live stream and the written Radical Dispatch had an entire section on Norway. We'll link to it in tomorrow's dispatch, but you can go back to last week's dispatch to see it. And we said, watch Norway, because Norway is a real issue when it comes to this nexus that we're discussing, the Epstein cabal. And we also reminded people that President Trump had mentioned Norway. But before we do, this is just online chatter just to show you this. Because of that arrest in Norway, Zero Hedge blog reports that former Norwegian Prime Minister and Nobel Committee Chair Thorsten Jagland has been admitted to hospital following an alleged suicide attempt after a corruption probe was charged with corruption linked to Epstein. So there's an unconfirmed, currently online report that he's now hospitalized because he attempted to take his own life. That's the former Prime Minister of Norway. Now, in last week's dispatch, which is on your screens now, which was called Epstein Files Fallout, Name All the Clients, we showed you what President Trump's concern was with Norway. We'll read it for you there. That's on your screens. With all this going on in Norway, we said, consider again Trump's recent letter to the Norwegian Prime Minister stating his complaint about Norway having unfairly blocked him from receiving a Nobel Prize. There's Trump's letter. And then we've said, couple this Norway news with the below revelation about Epstein, Norway, and the Nobel Peace Prize. And in retrospect, Trump doesn't seem quite so crazy anymore now, does he? And that's because on your screens, you can see an email. Again, Zero Hedge, the online political blog reporting, the man who shockingly awarded the newly elected Barack Obama the Nobel Peace Prize in 2009 and who was chair of the Nobel Committee from 2009 to 2015 was an Epstein Island regular. That is the Norwegian Prime Minister who's now been charged and is rumored to have subsequently attempted to take his own life. President Trump was correct again in singling out Norway and saying that they were corrupt, and it's all now being revealed. And so, as we said, that's Norway. Moving to the Clintons, here's a nice cartoon we would like everybody to see. It's on your screens now. Blowing that up for you so you can see it. There we are. And we'll read it for you. People arrested after partial release of Epstein files. You can see there the United Kingdom section is contains Prince Andrew and Peter Mandelson. No small fry, but the United States section remains blank. That political cartoon, very simple and basic one as it is, speaks for itself, and it makes the point very clearly. Nothing so far in the US has occurred after the arrest of Ghislaine Maxwell. So Ghislaine Maxwell remains the only woman to have been convicted for trafficking underage children to absolutely nobody. And that is a conundrum for President Trump that he's going to need to look at. And his DOJ have said that they're now closing the case. It doesn't seem to satisfy anyone that nobody has been brought to justice for what's been gone on. But we have said, as far back as the 20th of November, 2025, and that's in the Radical Dispatch. You can see it on your screens now. Epstein files. Hey, Clintons, you're next. That's what we said on the 20th of November, 2025. And then the Times reported on the 3rd of February, 2026, Bill and Hillary Clinton agreed to testify before Congress over Epstein links. And these are well, first we'll read it for you there. The former President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary have agreed to testify in person before Congress as part of its investigation into the late paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. They gave an 11th hour offer to appear before the Oversight Committee after the House prepared to vote to hold them in contempt. The Clintons had for months refused to testify, describing the subpoena by the committee's Republican chairman as invalid and legally unenforceable. Well, they've now agreed. These are the dates. According to Insider Paper Online, the dates that Bill and Hillary Clinton are to testify on Epstein, and that is the 26th of February, Hillary Clinton, 27th of February, Bill Clinton. That's coming up, folks. Today's the 24th of February. So in 2 days, Hillary Clinton is due to testify, and then the day after that, Bill Clinton is due to testify in Congress. And that's why we said a long time ago, we said in the Radical Dispatch, hey, Clintons, you're next, because indeed they are going to come under fire, just as in the UK, the two princes came under fire, and indeed Keir Starmer is in the spotlight to be next as well. And that's because of this political cartoon, which really does articulate the problem fairly and accurately. Not one single person, it says, you can see that there on your screens right there, not one single person who paid to rape children on Epstein's Island has been arrested. Well, that cartoon now in the UK is out of date because the two princes were arrested, but in the US, it still applies. None of the people that Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted for trafficking underage children to have been arrested. Who are they? Well, we know that it's possible to track their names. As we've published many times in the Radical Dispatch, the Wired magazine investigation tracked mobile cell data of 200 people from their homes all the way to Epstein's island. We know exactly who those people are, and that's why we say this scandal, it's just the tip of the iceberg. The scandal has only just started to blow. It's going to get a whole lot worse for a whole lot of other people who are perhaps thinking they're beginning to see the back of it. No, they are not beginning to see the back of it. Right now, they only see the front of it. The scandal hasn't even turned around for you to be able to see the back of it. This scandal is going to get worse for them. So that is all that we have time for today in the Warrior Creed live stream. We apologize for the cutting of the stream in the middle there. We don't know how or why that happened, but it did happen. We hope that you were able to receive the majority of this transmission uninterrupted. We also apologize for my state, unable to breathe as I am with hay fever and fasting at the same time. It makes it difficult to speak, but still, we hope we got out the key core information. The written version of this stream will be published tomorrow for you in the Radical Dispatch. Go to majidnawaz.substack.com and you can subscribers can get the Radical Dispatch for free. But premium subscribers, those who pay, get access to the podcasts of this stream and all of our other paywalled content, as well as advanced event notifications as well. So we do encourage you all to become paying subscribers. Until next week, you've been listening to The Radical, Majid Nawaz for the Warrior Grid live stream. We'll see you next time.
You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge. Witness the strength of street knowledge. Street knowledge.
Terrorize the jam like troops in Pakistan.
Street knowledge. Street knowledge. Quick service announcement brought to you in part by Warrior.